Hey, so in this video I'm going to show you how to emulate the Portra 400. It looks amazing, it's professional grade, you get these beautiful pastel colours. It's also unbelievably eye-wateringly expensive. You're not going to want any digital noise when you try to create this because we're going to be putting in some grain on top, and digital noise doesn't look the same as grain on emulsion. So it's just one thing to mention at the start. So we're going to start with the quick and dirty method. The blue is obviously way more aquamarine, and one thing that we're going to be using a lot in this video, when you raise the luminance value, you make something way more pastel. It appears to the eye to be less saturated. So that's going to be really important when we're doing our complicated professional looking portrait emulation later on. So I'm just raising up the shadows. You often hear people say, with film there's no true white, there's no true black. They put in an S-curve. And a lot of these rules are kind of generic rules for negative film. You know, they have a little bit less dynamic range. So you tend to find people will say, you know, reds go towards orange. Often quite saturated. Sometimes you get in things like Kodak Gold. But what you're going to end up with is a kind of fairly generic looking film look. Some people hate digital grain, other people want to add it as part of the look. I'll leave that to your taste. But you can see this is, you know, a really good beginning for emulating the film look. Pushing blue towards aqua, pushing red towards orange. What we're going to do though in this video is to look specifically at how Kodak Portra produces the right color. And it can actually be quite different. I mean, the blacks aren't true black. You do get things at either end of the dynamic range kind of slightly crushed, but to be honest, it's got really good dynamic range. It's a professional film, so we're not going to overdo it. We're setting a black point at 2.5, setting the white point at 97.5, raising the blacks a bit so that they don't look too deep and give the game away. So what we're going to do in this color mixer is we're actually going to leave the hue of the red alone for now. As you can see, it's actually not very orange. What we can see is that it's brighter, so we're raising the luminance. And in some of these reds, there will be orange as well. So what we do with the orange here is going to affect how the red appears. Slightly more saturation, way more luminance. Again, we're pushing towards those pastel type colors. The yellows are a little bit orangey. I'm eyeing this, and one of the ways that we can confirm whether we're on the right track is to see whether we can make it into a universal later on. So we're going to try it on other photos and see how they come up. The green, you can see what's going on here. It needs to be more blue. So the green is shifting towards blue. It's actually a little bit less saturated, but again, I think a lot of that is in the luminance. So the emulsion is kind of reacting to the green color, and it's coming up brighter. You can see the blue is different in this sign here, so we are going to push that towards aqua. I do this for a lot of my photos anyway. I just think it very often looks good. I think it's kind of out of fashion to have quite purpley blues, particularly in the sky. Gives it that kind of slightly 90s look that you got on CCD centers. I'm being delicate though, you can see with the blues. I'm not going to go crazy because it's actually not that far off center. It's not that much higher, the luminance. I think I'll leave purples alone, but pink needs to be... I'm going to desaturate this quite a lot, and I'm going to raise the luminance quite a lot because we want it to kind of get that candy floss look that you get so often with Portra. And this is starting to look good. One thing you can see though is that the background still needs grading. Where there are shadows, you can see the portrait on the left is way more kind of greeny yellow. I'm just going to add a bit of grain here. And if you click the little arrow, you can change the roughness, you can change how fine it is. I'm going to add about 33 grain. And yeah, in the shadows, I think there's a kind of greenish yellow hue. It looks like quite a strong saturation, which I don't know if that's the orthodoxy, but that's what we're going to do here because we're trying to color match. That looks much closer. And you can see it's affecting some of the other shadows as well. When we just pan across. Just try and get it as close as possible. If you stick around till the end, I'm going to show you what happens when you underexpose your portrait in color terms. So we're going to produce a muddy, disgusting, janky photo purely for the purposes of science. So interestingly, one of the things that people will very often do when they're color grading is to put more yellow, orange kind of tints, nice, sunny, warm tints into the highlights and the midtones. But that's not what we're seeing here. If you look at the portrait, the whites are, there's almost a kind of very subtle duck egg kind of blue. I think this wooden panel was actually painted as well, but even the whites aren't pure white. So I think this is probably why you get skies that look super aqua. If you remember, we didn't tamper too much with the blues in the color mixer, but the color grading is going to make up for that a little bit and increase the sense of aqua that you get across the bright parts of the screen. So I think that's looking pretty good now. See the pinks and blues. Highlights looking good, the shadows are looking good. I think the red could maybe go even slightly more pink, but let's try it on the next photo and see what happens. So if I just deselect these, I'm going to go to another shot here. I was trying to take shots that were as similar as possible. This is the famous Chinatown Pikachu. And I think those reds aren't quite the same. I'm pasting in, and you can see the grading on the floor isn't quite right either. The greens look good, the reds look pretty close now. Less so in the bright parts. So what I'm going to do is go to red, and I'm slightly bumping the saturation. I actually do think it needs to go more pink. So we're going against what most people would say with film photography, that you push your reds towards orange. And then you can see in the floor is much more like a kind of yellowy green. So what we need to do is to get these mid-tones. I think they're mostly mid-tones. I'm going to the extreme just so that it's really obvious when I've got the right hue. And then I'm just dialing back the saturation until we're fairly well matched. That's much closer now. Still got those vivid reds, but the orange is coming from the orange in the mixer. And you can see why it's good for skin tones, because you're raising the luminance of the oranges. You're shifting anything red which might look like blotches towards pink, which looks a bit healthier. So let's try for one more photo, see what happens. Okay, this is the starting point. The floor looks pretty similar. Walls look pretty similar. I think the blue is maybe a bit darker. These weren't taken at exactly the same time, these two. So it's not quite a like for like comparison. I went back to the road to go and get a reference shot. So this one's maybe not going to be an exact match because I think the lighting conditions were a bit different. We can try and mess with the highlights a bit, see if we can bring it closer. I don't think we were too far off before, so I don't want to take us off course here. So this is what the Portra looks like when applied to a normal indoor scene. And kind of just for fun, I'm just going to show you what happens. This is a deeply underexposed shot of my lounge. As you can see, it's just a mushy mess. We can recreate that if we so desire. So there's not much digital noise, just to show you. I'm going to be wrecking this photo on purpose, but it gives you a sense of how the colors are coming through on the film, just to give you some kind of better instinct for what's actually happening when you expose your film. The shadows just get completely lost. We do still see some of the brighter parts coming out, this is where we really lift the blacks and really pull down the whites, because what you're massively losing when you underexpose is contrast. I mean, as much grain as you could possibly handle in this. And before color grading, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you on the tone curve. It starts to sort of skew the tone curve basically. So I'm going to set these points and then just shift the whole thing in that bottom quartile. I'm shifting all slightly towards red. I'm then going to do the same thing. I'm setting my points and I'm going to shift the whole bottom quartile towards green. Believe me, this hurts me just as much as it hurts you. I'm setting reference points on the blue yellow and I'm pushing it way more yellow. Oh, I didn't go far enough with green, unbelievably. I don't know what nefarious reason you would have to create a digital version of a underexposed portrait shot, but the coup de grace is to just pull a huge amount of sickly green-yellow into your shadows, like maybe 30-40% saturation. Please never do this for any other reason. Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of nearly there now. I should not spend too much more time on this. So, to go back on track, this is how we get the portrait look. And it's free. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, drop it a like. Tell me what you'd like to see me do next. And subscribe if you feel like it. Thanks, guys.